Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another video. Today we are going to recap the wildcard round of the NFL playoffs. This was such a crazy wildcard round, and honestly, the best game was probably, at least in my opinion, the one that should be expected. In, just based on which team I'm a fan of. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. First up, we had the Rams beat the Panthers 34-31 in what was a really close game. The stat sheet doesn't do it justice, but Bryce Young, when he did end up completing those passes, was like huge passes to make. And like the stat sheet doesn't do it justice. 264 and one touchdown and one pick, but like I said before, the stat sheet doesn't do it justice. He made those plays. He's at the right times. And the Rams, did make some mistakes. There was also a blocked punt in there that also helped the Panthers get to 31 from 24. But this was a really good game. Stafford himself had 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. And the rushing game was pretty much held in check a little bit by the Panthers, and Bryce Young was able to get some rushing yards himself, but otherwise the rushing game for the Panthers didn't get all too well. But yeah, overall, this was a genuinely good game from both teams. And the Rams did come away with it. The Panthers, they were pretty close to upsetting the Rams for a second time this year, but they didn't come up short. And if Bryce Young could play like he did this game throughout all of next year, then we might be talking more about the Panthers like actually a good team rather than the inconsistent team that they have been this year. But now that's a question for next year if Bryce Young could really do it. And for the Rams, they'll move on to face Chicago, as I think that might be a high-scoring game. Speaking of Chicago, the Bears won 31-27 against the Green Bay Packers. And this was the most exciting game for me, considering I am a Bears fan. But we did not play well at all in that first 3 quarters. I'll admit that. We did not. Jordan Love had like really good passing yards already by the time it was the fourth quarter. Jordan Love ended up going 323 yards and 4 touchdowns with no picks. And the rushing game actually did not even do all too well. Well, overall it did better than the Bears, but Josh Jacobs did not do that work. He was not. And what exactly was Josh Jacobs doing returning? Like being a returner at first? After a little bit? Because, yeah. Josh Jacobs had some kick returns. Why? But I think another bit to point out is how McManus just absolutely sold the Packers this game as well. And I absolutely see him getting the hate in Green Bay, but I personally just love it, just based on the Bears winning in this game. Caleb, even though he didn't play all too great in the first 3 quarters, ended up having 361 yards, 2 picks, and 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. And the rushing game, DeAndre Swift had 54, Kyle Monangai had 27, Caleb Williams had 20, but the other rushes did not really do all that well. That lowered the whole average number. But overall, the Bears absolutely played in the fourth quarter, and I was excited myself. Also, DJ Moore is a Packer slayer, he got the game-winning touchdown for the Bears. Each of the past 2 games that the Bears ended up winning. So, yeah, we'll say that DJ Moore is the Packers slayer, but Caleb Williams is as well. But yeah, the Bears will be facing the Rams in this upcoming round, which I'm compared to the Packers, I don't have as much hope for the Bears against the Rams because the Rams are generally a better opponent that the Packers had, especially since the Packers' last win on the season was to us in Week 14. While the Rams, they have Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams did play again for this past game, but that was his first game back. So there's a little bit of that as well. But you'll see what I think more so within my picks video later on. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills win 27-24 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams played pretty well. Now, for the Jaguars, there was a lot more mistakes in the Jaguars than the Bills then. As Trevor Lawrence had 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. And Cam Little also missed the kick after. Okay, that whole sequence was a wild one, and it was a pretty far kick. I think it was. Hold on, let me make sure because it was at the end of the half. It was a 54-yarder. So it's not as far as I thought. Just saying that at first, but this was generally just such a wild moment because that field goal probably might not have happened anyways because it was right when it was turning to 0, just before, and we had the false start penalty. And that gave the Jaguars a shot. And it came right after the Parker Washington reception for 34 yards. So that was an insane moment, but they just could not get it done. On the Bills side of things, Josh Allen did have 273 yards and a touchdown. And the Washington game did not really get all too much with James Cook getting 46 yards off 15 carries. But, yeah, just going more into the immediate future. So each team is, obviously, the Jaguars all eliminated. And it sucks that this was one of the games that I got wrong, considering I had the Jaguars going all the way to the Super Bowl. So that was just really awesome on my end. But I do think that for the Bills, I did think that the winner of this game would make it at least to the championship game, considering the rest of the AFC is there. But yeah, I think the Bills has a very decent shot against the Broncos. But like I said before with the Bears, you'll have to wait to see for the picks video for what I think will happen with the Bills game. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers is winning against the Philadelphia Eagles 23-19. Now, I'm not going to lie, this game I was heading back here, and I was heading back to the apartment during this time here, so this is a game that I saw the least out of any of the games. But based on what I did end up seeing, the Eagles just could not really do anything. Hurts only had 168 yards and a touchdown, and Barkley did have 106 yards, but he also had 26 carries to get to that 106 yards, so there was not all too much. And yeah, I think the Eagles' downfall throughout the year was highlighted by Kevin Patullo. And And as of the time was recording, which is more towards the evening time of Tuesday, Patullo was fired. So there's at least some hope for the Eagles next year, at least compared to this year. And maybe you'll actually get it right with offensive coordinator to where it'll be more of a repeat of 2024 rather than a repeat of this year. And for the Eagles next year, I'd rather not be, because the Bears do face the Eagles again next year. But hey, you know what? I do think that was the right move for the Eagles. For the 49ers, I did see that Kittle ended up getting hurt in the middle of this game, and he will be out for the rest of the playoffs. So that is troubling against Seattle. But overall, Brock Purdy did pretty good himself. 262 yards, 2 picks, and 2 interceptions. CMC, he did not really get going himself. But how about this, though? How about this? Jawan Jennings had a touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey. And I think that was the best play of this game, honestly. I think that truly was the best play of this game. And that play did overall help the 49ers win against the Eagles. So, yeah, I think the 49ers is going to have a tough battle against Seattle. But for the Eagles, at least they have something to be excited about for next year already. Next up, we have the New England Patriots win against the Chargers in what was probably one of the more boring games of the Wildcard weekend. It definitely was, because this was the lowest scoring game of the weekend. The Chargers, you could say about the 159 yards, but it's more so the fact that the Chargers just let Justin Herbert get a lot, just get sacked a lot. Like, the Patriots defense absolutely did its part on Herbert, and that effectively just made it so the offense was not as functional, and especially when the rushing game cannot really do all too much. Amari and Hampton only have 1 carry. I don't remember what happened with Hampton, but when he only has 1 carry, that is probably a sign as well. I don't remember what happened, though. But Fidal had only 31 carries, so most of the rushing yards also did come from Herbert, which is a little bit troubling. And with that as well, considering the passing game was not really functional with all the pressure that Herbert was being under that game. For the Patriots, 268 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And again, he also was the leading rusher with 66 yards. And I think the Chargers defense was providing an impact on the Patriots as well. Because as you can see, also over here, the Chargers defense also was giving May pressure as well. Not as much as the Patriots did on the Chargers, but it did have an impact as well. And the only facing the Texans, who does have that good defense, is to potentially do this again. But how would that translate into that game? I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that the Patriots is going to struggle in the playoffs, which is why I had them losing to the Jaguars in the bracket. But they do have Houston, which is arguably a weaker opponent than Jaguars. So we will see what is to happen with the divisional round. But at least for now, they have that going for them. And for the Chargers, they just continue to have no playoff wins under Justin Herbert. And finally, we have the Houston Texans win 30-6 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. For a long time, the Texans was like keeping it close with the Steelers, because 7-6 at the end of the third quarter turned into 30-6 in that fourth quarter. As the Texans defense, they were applying pressure on Aaron Rodgers quite a bit throughout the game. They ended up getting 2 defensive touchdowns in that fourth quarter, and that essentially helped the overall score of the Texans, especially as you can see interceptions. Kalen Bullock got a touchdown, and then within Sheldon Rankins' fumble, he also got that touchdown with that fumble. But overall, this was a tough game for Aaron Rodgers to go out of, as he only had 146 yards and a pick. And I personally do think he retires after this year, but I'm pretty sure based on what has been said so far from last night, that he was like, he doesn't entirely know yet within his retirement, but he's just going to, based on how Rodgers has been throughout the past few seasons, he's just going to like officially retire maybe even in the summer. That's how Aaron Rodgers is. He's just going to make people wait on it, but I do think he's going to retire after this season. I truly do. I think this was his final game in the NFL. But he's just going to make everyone wait with like, oh, is he actually going to come back? Is he actually going to retire? No, I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to retire. I'm just going to not focus on that at all, because this is what Aaron Rodgers does. But there also was other news with the Steelers with how Tomlin is going to resign and let someone else coach now, which I think does help the Steelers, because with Tomlin, the Steelers have continually been in the 9-8, 10-7 combo, and just lose in the first round like how they have now. I did pick the Steelers to win as an upset because the Texans defense was, I want to say, lacking before this game, but the performance in this game brings me back to Texas defense is good. Don't call them lacking again, kind of thing. But yeah, I think the Steelers is going to be better moving forward. Just even if it's going to be a worse next year, better moving following next year, kind of thing. But I think just being stuck in mediocrity like the Steelers have been throughout the past like few years, it's just not been good for the Steelers. Because they just continually stay in this kind of scenario each year. But now the Tomlin's Tomlin wasn't fired. He just resigned. But now that Tomlin is resigned, I think you'll see more of like in the Steelers not being that 9-8, 10-7 type of position. But for the Texans, they do face the Patriots in the next round. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to pick in that game yet, but that will be a good game too. And actually, it's probably not going to be a good game. It's going to be more like, it's probably going to end up a little bit more towards like a closer version of like the Patriots Chargers of this game, where it's like a little bit more on the lower scoring end, but one team pulls it out in a close one, even though these two ended up not being all too close. But with that, that's going to be the end for this video. If you guys liked it, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!